Hello everyone. In the previous video, we have discussed about the airway mechanics and resistance that is faced by the flowing air in our airways. So now we will discuss about the work done by your respiratory system, the entire respiratory system. For important two things. One is for increasing the lung volumes, for increasing the chest volume, lung volume, and for also making the air go inside and go outside, inside into the lungs and outside from the lungs into the atmosphere. So how this work is done? Our brain has control only on the respiratory muscles, on the muscles in the chest wall and also muscles in your rib cage, muscles of diaphragm. Apart from that, it does not have any direct effect on your pleural pressures, alveolar pressures, transpulmonary pressures. It does not have any direct effect. It works indirectly. Again, I will run you through the sequence. Inspiratory signals will go from your brain, from your respiratory centers, which are mainly present in your brain stem. They will go to your phrenic muscle nuclei and also to the nuclei in the thoracic spinal cord. The motor nerves goes to the diaphragm and also to the your external intercostal muscles. So these muscles contract, increasing the rib cage in all diameters, pulling the parietal pleura, Boyle's law, reducing the intrapleural pressure or else intrathoracic pressure. So again, this stretches the lungs, decreasing the alveolar pressure. At the same time, out of this so much of the intrapleural pressure, most of the intrapleural pressure decline is used for the creation of positive transpulmonary pressure, which extends the lung, which distends the lung alveoli. So when the lung alveoli distends, again Boyle's law, volume increases, pressure decreases, alveolar pressure drops. When the pressure drops compared to the atmospheric pressure near your nose and mouth, air will enter. So just go through this slide. So the total effort used by our body, mainly the working of your inspiratory muscles, it has two things to do. One is static function and another one is dynamic function. Out of the static function, or else you can say static lung compliance, it has to increase the lung compliance, overcome the increase in lung compliance is nothing but overcome the elastic forces and maintain the current lung volume. Initially, from FRC to take in the tidal volume, your lung volume has to increase first. First lung volume increases, then the pressure drops, that leads to airflow. It is not like air enters pushing the increasing lung volume. No. First, because of the intrapleural changes, lung volume increased and then the air enters. Okay, this is like that. So to overcome these elastic forces, to increase the compliance, to increase transpulmonary pressure, so the drop in intrapleural pressure is mostly used to increase the transpulmonary pressure. How much the increase occurred? So let's say from FRC, functional residual capacity, to take in the tidal volume. Okay, so before that, the volume of the lungs from FRC is increased to 0.5, increased by 0.5 liters, that is 500 ml. To increase this volume, how much PTP change should be there? That transpulmonary pressure from 5 to 7.5 centimeters. This increase is possible because of the reduced intrapleural pressure. This we already discussed. Now, the lung volume, when there is no airflow, has to be increased from FRC for around 5.5 liters. For that, we need a change in this much volume. That is shared from your drop in intrapleural pressure. Now, once the lung volume reached this extra 500 ml, now what happens? Because of the Boyle's law, increase in volume leads to drop in the intra alveolar pressure. Drop in the intra alveolar pressure. So we now plot intra alveolar pressure on x-axis and flow volume. See, flow is how many liters per unit time is entering and how much it is leaving. So if it is entering towards the alveoli, flow we will get as minus value. So the minus set, see, the flow can be 0 or else flow is present. You can say, sir, according to this graph, this might be minus. It is not minus flow. This minus indicates flow towards the alveoli during inspiration. During inspiration, what happens? Alveolar pressure drops towards negative side, negative in comparison to barometric pressure. So this is the driving force which we discussed in the previous video. The driving force for air movement from the atmosphere into the alveoli via tracheobronchial tree. That is nothing but PB minus PA, or is PTO, PM minus PA. That is the driving force for the air to enter alveoli. So here, if you take the slope of this alveolar pressure difference versus flow volume, that is nothing but your resistance. Slope will give you 1 by R. So the slope will give you 1 by R. You remember the formula, flow volume is equal to 1 by R into PA, not PA, delta P. That PA, the relative pressure difference should be PA. So PB minus PA, PB is mostly at 0 at FRC. See, at FRC, if this is functional residual capacity, you can see PA is 0. It is equal to PB. So there is no flow. There is no flow. So once the alveolar pressure drops to negative sides, so there is flow into the air and alveolus. So this is the dynamic component. Static component is increase in the compliance, overcoming the elastic force, increasing the transpulmonary pressure, distending the lung, increasing the lung volume, static force. There is no movement of air in and out here. We are simply increasing the lung volume. Now, once this is achieved, because of the increase in volume and decrease in alveolar pressure, there is entry of air from outside to inside. So this entry of air has to overcome resistance and inertia. So static component mainly is determined by the compliance of the lung, transpulmonary pressure, and dynamic component is mainly determined by the airway resistance. So the work has to be done. So both static work, dynamic work. Static work is mainly to overcome the elastic forces, to increase the lung volumes before any in and outflow of lung. And once this is changed, the another work has to be done to overcome this resistance. So our brain has no control on this or this directly, but brain has control on indirectly affecting the PIP by affecting your respiratory muscles contraction. Okay, now we will see. So the static component here, what is done is alveoli have to be stretched, their volume has to be increased. So the constant is here static compliance. What we are changing here is compliance. Compliance is further affected by the transpulmonary pressure. So the key parameter here is the static lung volume. We have to increase the lung volume. What is compliance? The change in lung volume for unit change in pressure. How much is the compliance in lung? So 500 ml divided by 2.5, like that. It is around 2 liter per. Okay, that is, you know, already we have discussed. So this 500 ml 0.5 liter divided by 2 centimeters. So that much compliance should be changed. So the lung compliance on an average it is 200 ml per centimeters of water. 200 ml per centimeters of water. So what happens when the compliance decreases? That means the elastic recoil of the lung, elastic forces decreases, and lung is not expansible. The conditions where static lung compliance diseases, those diseases we call it as restrictive lung diseases, mainly pulmonary fibrosis. What happens here? The static lung compliance decreases. So lung compliance decreases means more transpulmonary pressures are required to achieve a similar volume change in normal lungs. So if you want to achieve a 500 ml change in volume, you require more transpulmonary pressures in restrictive lung diseases compared to the normal lung. So out of the entire work done of breathing, most of the part, around 60% of the part is going for the maintenance of the static compliance, increasing the transpulmonary pressure. Now leftover 28% of the work is going to be against this airway resistance. See, If air has to go inside, then work has to be done to combat this airway resistance, because airway resistance opposes the airflow. So most of the work has been done to combat the compliance. At the same time, some amount of the work is done to overcome the airway resistance. Here, this driving force is mainly determined by the difference between the pressure between airway entry and in the alveolar pressure. That is PTV or PM minus PA. PTO is equal to barometric pressure. So it depends on the difference between barometric pressure and alveolar pressure. Once alveolar pressure drops less than the barometric pressure, then air enters from atmosphere into the alveolus. So here the anatomical correlate is mainly the airways conducting the air. So dynamic component mainly depends on the airways, depending on the airway resistance. Static component mainly on the alveolar volume and change in this volume components. So flow rate is delta P by airway resistance. Flow is determined by delta P by airway. Delta P is atmospheric pressure minus alveolar pressure. Okay, and airway resistance. If resistance is more, flow will be less. So in which conditions resistance increases? In those lung diseases, we can combine them under obstructive lung diseases, like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, most commonly seen in smokers. Here airway resistance increases. So the work has to be done, more work has to be done to overcome this airway resistance. So what is this work of breathing? How your body is doing the work, especially mainly during your inspiration. Expiration is a passive process. We already discussed. Expiration is a passive process. It occurs because of elastic recoil of the lungs and the potential energy stored in the already expanded lungs and chest wall. Whereas your intercostal muscles and diaphragm contracts to do the work of breathing. Simple. What is the formula for this calculating work of breathing? Is the transpulmonary pressure and change in the lung volume. Transpulmonary pressure and change in the lung volume. How much transpulmonary pressure is required? How much change in the lung volume is achieved? That will give you the work done. So this work has to overcome the elastic or compliance work. Okay, 65% is to overcome the elastic recoil to create positive transpulmonary pressure, increase in the compliance of the lung. So 7% to overcome the tissue resistance, mainly in the chest wall tissues, the lung tissues. 28% to overcome the airway resistance. Airway resistance mainly objects the flow of the air. So normal conditions, out of total energy spent in our body, only 5% is spent for our tidal respiration. Only 5% is spent for our tidal respiration out of entire body energy production. So much is gone for maintaining your body metabolic rate. Okay, body metabolic rate takes almost 20 to 25% of the energy produced. Heart requires constant energy supply. Brain requires constant energy supply. Driving your blood, all these things consume. So the respiratory system is more efficient when more work is done for less energy input. Okay, or else the ease of work is uh, good. With ease you should work, sir. That means if there is for little change in transpulmonary pressure and you are achieving more change in lung volumes, that will give you highly efficient work production, right? You need to spend less energy, and you it should not be exhaustive for the subject. Let's say compliance of the lung decreased. Okay, lung you are not able to expand, you are requiring more transpulmonary pressure to increase the lung volume, then work has to be done more, energy input will be more by the body. Similarly, if air, that happens in your restrictive lung diseases. If more resistance, airway resistance increased, and to overcome this more resistance, more work is done, more energy is spent. So this leads to laborious breathing, laborious respiration. Person will be spending his entire body energy for this work, and because the muscles of respiration are skeletal muscles, they can fatigue. So if work of breathing increases, energy consumption for this work done increases. This leads to fatigue of the respiratory muscles, leading to decrease in respiratory movements. Finally, change in the gases constituents. It tampers with the ventilation, tampers with the exchange of gases, and that is detrimental for the subject. So our pressure volume curves, as usual, it will depict the work of breathing. So that we will see next. So first thing is compliance. What is this compliance? The change in volume per unit change in pressure. So for the little changes in pressure, if the volume change is more, than compliance is good. If ideally we should have normal compliance of lung. Too much high compliance is also not good. Low compliance, again, it increases your work of breathing. So compliance is opposed by elastic recoil of the lung, tissue resistance, and not only that, airway resistance will also increase the work of your breathing. So the transpulmonary pressure, increase in the transpulmonary pressure increases the lung volume, and this decreases lung volume increase decreases the alveolar pressure. Indirectly, it also overcomes the airway resistance. So finally, what happens? Air flows from mouth to alveoli. So overcoming the elastic recoil force of the lung is the static work done, static component of the work done. Overcoming the tissue resistance, viscosity, comes under static component of work done. Overcoming the airway resistance comes under your dynamic component of work done. These things increases the lung volume. Airway resistance, overcoming the airway resistance will allow the air to flow from mouth to alveoli. So we know that when you plot inspiratory volumes and expiratory volumes against the change in intrapleural pressure or transpulmonary pressure, there is a difference. Why there is difference? Because of the surface tension. This difference in hysteresis because of surface tension at the air water interface we already discussed. If it is filled with saline, it will be like this. There is no difference between the expiration and inspiration here. And from this diagram, you can also see that the pressure required to open the collapsed alveoli and airways is always more than the pressure required to keep open the already open airways. Okay, it is difficult for you to understand now, but once you read and watch these videos in loop, you can understand this statement easily. Now, so out of the most of the drop in intrapleural pressure, okay, most drop, let's say minus 6 mm, it became from -2 to -6. Then transpulmonary pressure changes from let's say this up of this minus 6 mm change, most of the change is used for increasing the transpulmonary pressure, causing it towards positive change. Out of this maximum minus 6 mm, only minus 1 mm is used to drop the alveoli. You can understand it like this. Only minus 1 mm of this alveolar pressure is achieved from -2 to -6 intrapleural pressure. The leftover thing is mainly used for the transpulmonary pressure increase, which in turn causes the drop in this intra-alveolar pressure. So no need to get confused. So what I am trying to emphasize is our expansion of the rib cage by our muscles of inspiration mainly aims in driving the intrapleural pressure more negative, thereby overcoming the tissue elastic recoil, increasing transpulmonary pressure, increasing the lung volume. Of that, some amount of change is also used for dropping of the alveolar pressure. When alveolar pressure drops from 0 to -1 centimeter because of the pressure difference between the atmosphere and alveolar pressure. So at inspiration, during inspiration, what is happening? Inside alveolar pressure is -1, that is in relation to atmosphere. It is 759 millimeters. Atmospheric pressure is 760. So from the nose into the alveoli, air will go. How much air will go? Volume of the breath is 500 ml. That is nothing but your tidal volume. Now, we already discussed what is work done. Transpulmonary pressure into the change in lung volume. So this entire area, the green area, will give you the work of breathing. So for normal lung, when we plot inspiratory and expiratory volumes against the transpulmonary pressure, this is the hysteresis we will get, and this entire green area is work of breathing. What happens when the compliance of lung decreases? That means elastic recoil of the lung increase, to which more work is done to overcome this elastic recoil, or else to overcome this decreased compliance, there will be increased work of breathing, which happens in restrictive lung diseases. So there is some restriction to the expansion of the lung. So most common restrictive lung disease is pulmonary fibrosis, where there is increased fibers, collagen fibers in your lung tissue, so that your lung has to be overcoming the decreased compliance. Not only that, if any musculoskeletal disorders of your rib cage, they are also restrict to lung diseases. Changes to your chest curvatures like scoliosis, kyphosis, forward bending, lateral bending. Okay, all these conditions which restrict the lung movements comes under restrict to lung diseases, where the compliance is reduced, more transpulmonary pressure. Let's say, see, to change the lung volume from FRC to tidal volume, here the transpulmonary pressure required is less. But here, to change the same lung volume from here to here, transpulmonary pressure required is more. The change in transpulmonary pressure required is more. This also increases the work of breathing. More transpulmonary pressure is required. So W is equal to P into delta V. More transpulmonary pressure is required. That also increases the work of breathing. Then another type of diseases where there is obstruction to the airflow. That means airway compression. Somewhere the airways are getting compression. There is blockage. In those conditions also work of breathing increases. You can see highest here at some transpulmonary pressure the airways are open, but here so much transpulmonary pressure is required to open the collapsed airways. This also increases the work of breathing. In restrictive lung diseases, work of breathing increases to overcome the decreased compliance. In obstructive lung diseases, work of breathing increases to overcome the increased airway resistance. So chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, this is the classical example of obstructive lung diseases, mostly seen in chronic smokers. If you plot the airway resistance, if the lung volume increases, obviously I told you, because of the mechanical tethering, alveoli will increase in their diameter, pulling the airways open. So what happens to the airway resistance? When lung volume increases, airway resistance decreases. So in a normal subject and in a patient with COPD, at the same lung volume, you can see the airway resistance is higher in subject with COPD. Airway resistance higher in subject with COPD. At same lung volume, you can see the airway resistance is higher in COPD patients. This is because of the increase in resistance. This increase in resistance has to be overcome by more increase in work done. So in COPD, where the airway resistance increases, before that you can see the resistance offered. You remember the units of resistance. So resistance is equal to delta P by volume flow. So delta P is in centimeters of water. That what is the delta P? PB minus PA. Finally it is PB minus PA. So volume flow. Per unit time, how much volume is flowing into the lung? 500 ml, right? Single breath, how much volume is going into the lung? 500 ml. Depending on that, if you calculate, or else you can calculate normally. So the resistance in pharynx and larynx is 0.6 centimeters of water per liter per second airflow. In airways of higher diameters, it is also 0.6. Then airways of lower diameter, it is 0.3. So total airway resistance is 1.8. If you remember that graph, as the airway generation number increases, at the end resistance falls. Actually, according to Poiseuille's law, this is supposed to be highest, but the airway resistance in the smaller airways is less. Why? We already discussed, because of the parallel connection, increased overall cross section area and radius. So in these airways, the airway resistance is less. Why this is very, very important? Because the larger airways have cartilaginous support. So even though airway resistance increases here, they will never collapse. But smaller airways doesn't have cartilage. So they are already subjected to compressive forces. They are already subjected to compressive forces. So if the airway resistance is more in these smaller airways also, they are ready to collapse. Airway resistance is more. So work done to move the air inside these smaller airways will be very high. So it is a natural homeostatic and uh, gifted mechanism that because of the parallel arrangement, because of the Ohm's law, same application of Ohm's law, even though R is inversely proportional to the radius power 4, smaller airways are having lower resistance. But in COPD, what is happening is there is only little increase in larger airway diameter resistance, but there is marked increase in smaller airway resistance. So total airway resistance also increases compared to normal lungs. This total airway resistance increases majorly because of increased resistance in the smaller airways. So COPD, bronchial asthma, mainly smaller airway resistance increases, and they are more prone to collapse. When they are more prone to collapse, if you remember during inspiration, the mechanical tethering increases the diameter of airways when alveoli expand. But during expiration, alveoli will compress because of the increase in pressures. Okay, when there is expiration, the alveoli will compress, compressing the smaller airways, compressing the smaller airways. Along with that, if the airway resistance is increased in the smaller airways, what happens to the air in the alveoli gets trapped. Smaller airways will collapse, trapping the air in the alveoli, and slowly the alveoli will adapt in such a way that the local compliance will increase tremendously. So this will become a vicious cycle where there is increase in local compliance and further increase in resistance. So this resistance finally increase, rendering some of the alveoli non-functional. So when alveoli is not receiving air, especially what happens in COPD is mainly during expiration, because of increased airway resistance and increase in compressive forces, the smaller airways will collapse and alveoli gas will be trapped in the alveoli. After some times, these alveoli will become non-functional. So this is very, very important. So work of breathing. Why work of breathing? Work has to be done during respiration is most importantly, one is to overcome the tissue elastic recoil forces. That is the static component. P into delta V, transfer pressure into change in the lung volumes. Out of that, 68% is used to overcome the static lung compliance, to increase the lung volume. Then to combat the tissue resistance, so this is around 7%. And another 28% is used to overcome the airway resistance. That is the dynamic component. Air enters from the atmosphere into the alveoli when the alveolar pressure is less. When the alveolar pressure is less. So this is all we finished. Normal physiology, everything. Now we came to know how, what are the sequence of steps, how respiratory signals are going, how the volumes are changing, pressures are changing, everything. Now we apply it to practical aspect. So you a subject is paralyzed. A subject is paralyzed. There is an injury to his brain stem. Respiratory signals are not going to his respiratory apparatus. How to make the subject lungs work? Previously there used to be lung chambers where mechanical belts they used to attach it to the chest wall, and externally they used to increase the chest wall diameters, pulling the chest wall in all directions. What happens when you do that? Externally, what you are doing is pulling the chest wall open so that the intrapleural pressure drops. All the events will continue. That's what they used to do in lung chamber, mechanical lung chamber. Externally, they used to attach belts to the chest wall, and for inspiration, they used to expand the chest wall mechanically from outside. For expiration, they used to compress the same chest wall. This is how you can move. Very simple thing. If air has to move from outside to inside, you have to decrease the alveolar pressure. This is happening normally. Or else you can do one thing. You can increase the pressure at the nose. If you increase the pressure at the nose, go to the previous diagram. Okay. If air has to enter from the atmosphere into the alveoli, normally what is happening? Alveolar pressure is becoming minus 1 mmHg. You can do one more thing. You can increase the pressure here. If you Continuously increase the pressure here, that is known as continuous positive airway pressure, CPAP. Nothing but what you use in your ventilator. In ventilator, what you do, when you connect the endotracheal tube, at the end of endotracheal tube you increase the pressure. So pressure with which you are pumping the air into the ET tube will be higher than the pressure in the alveoli. So air will go from higher pressure area to lower pressure area. This is how your mechanical ventilator works. Simple. How to get out this air? Positive and expiratory pressure. Positive and expiratory pressure. In the end of the expiration, if you increase the alveolar pressure, air will move from alveoli into the atmosphere. So continuous positive airway pressure and positive and expiratory pressure, these are the two principles which you use in your day-to-day ventilators, which you are simple. Create a positive pressure here, so that because what is the driving pressure? Pressure near the nose or mouth minus pressure in the alveoli. You increase pressure here, law of diffusion allows the air to move from outside to inside. That is how your ventilator works. Or else previously what they used to do, increase the chest volume, drop in intrapleural pressure, increase in lung volume, drop in alveolar pressure. So the chest volume increase normally occurs because of the contraction of your respiratory muscle, or else externally they used to attach the entire belt to chest volume and used to increase. To pump lung air outside the lung, they used to compress the chest. But nowadays we don't use that. We directly use the CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure ventilation. So that is why we have to discuss all these things. This will be helpful forever. And we will continue in the next class about the dynamic lung function test. Okay, very important. Once that is over, we will differentiate between the obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. Okay, watch the next video.